Ciao, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Experience Italy with Friends. Before we head into the holiday season, we thought it would be a great time to talk about planning your dream trip to Italy in 2025. This way, you can make use of that quality time with family and friends to discuss what everyone would like to do and when and where to go. You may also have heard that the Vatican is hosting a little event called the Jubilee in 2025. So we'll first discuss how that may impact your plans. And assuming you decide that 2025 is the year for you, we'll discuss the many ways to go about planning your trip, from planning it entirely by yourself, to looking for an organized tour package, or enlisting the help of travel professionals. It's another episode packed with useful information that we hope inspires you to get planning your dream vacation to this amazing country. Let's get started. Andiamo! Experience Italy with Friends is a travel and lifestyle podcast where we will explore our favorite destinations and hidden gems, share key travel tips and cultural insights, and provide real-time updates about our move to this remarkable country. Join me, Tanya Razzo, an Italian travel expert and founder of Amici Vacations, and my Italian husband and producer, Davide Razzo, on a journey that is sure to inspire you and prepare you to create immersive and authentic experiences of your own in the beautiful country of Italy. Hello again, everyone. I'm your host, Tanya, and I'm here with Davide, also known as my co-host and producer.
Ciao a tutti.
Today's episode is all about planning your dream trip to Italy. Is 2025 the right year to go, or should you wait? And then, what's the best way to go about planning it? Should you tackle it yourself, or what options exist to help you?
I'm excited about this topic, but let's give them a quick update about our lives in Italy, Tanya. It's been another couple of weeks here, right?
It has, and we've moved again. First, we're now in our third location, Castiglione Fiorentino. We absolutely loved our time in the Val d'Orcia, but we'll talk all about that experience in our next episode. So, outside of continuing to explore the area, we've been working through more logistical items.
Yep, I was able to open up a bank account. It wasn't easy because it was a little bit more complicated due to the fact that we still have tax residency in the US. So there were some extra things required by the bank. Then we bought a car weeks ago, but we still don't have it. But we're supposed to pick it up on Thursday, right, Tanya?
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Also, our container with our goods has been sitting at the port of Gioia Tauro for the last 3 weeks, going through inspections, and finally has been released last week. And ta-da! It will be delivered to our home in Calabria on Wednesday at 9 a.m.
Fingers also crossed for that.
Yes. Okay, then we are still continuing to look for a long-term rental, which is frustrating. It is almost an impossible task. And it is a challenge, but we are keeping up. So
yes, it's frustrating and a bit depressing, to be honest. It's really been a couple of weeks of challenges. And we knew moving here would not be easy and it was going to be a test of our patience. And it's no joke. But in the midst of all that frustration, we've had so many pinch me moments too, where we sit and realize we're blessed to be able to call this place home as we look out over beautiful rolling hills with a glass of wine in hand.
That's true. We're so fortunate, Tanya.
So that's a quick update about our adventure, but let's get started with today's episode. As I mentioned in the intro, the holiday season is a great time to gather with family and begin to discuss the key planning items of when and where to go to Italy.
Well, Tanya, let's start with the biggest question you always get. Is 2025 a good year to go to Italy, given the Vatican's Jubilee?
The short answer is yes, but advanced planning is needed.
I love those short answers, but tell me more.
What, you want more?
Yes, please.
Okay, let's break it down and talk through all the key aspects.
First, what is the Jubilee?
You know, I have to admit, despite being raised Catholic, and I feel guilty admitting this, but I had to do some research online about this to get you the formal definition so that I would be correct about it. And here goes. The Jubilee is a special year of grace, also called a holy year, and is the period during which the Catholic Church or Pope grants plenary indulgence or the remission of sins to the faithful who travel to Rome and perform particular religious practices, passing through the holy door, confessing, receiving communion, praying, and performing a work of piety, mercy, or penance. So I take that as you come to Rome, you pray, and you get a fast pass to heaven.
Wow. Okay.
And the Jubilee occurs every 25 years, or at least the main one. But there was an extraordinary Jubilee of Mercy called in 2015 and 2016, which was requested by Pope Francis.
We were there that year, 2016.
We were. And, thinking back, I didn't realize that this was going on. So that might play into our conversation a little bit about, does it really turn the town upside down?
Okay.
The most exciting and well-known rite during the Jubilee is certainly the opening of the holy doors. There are 4 of them at the major basilicas of St. Peter, the Archbasilica of St. John Lateran, St. Paul outside the walls, and St. Mary Major. And passing through a holy door has a precise meaning. It's the symbol of passage that every Christian must make from sin to grace.
Okay, so how is that going to impact Rome?
The main impact is that the event is expected to draw many more millions of additional tourists to an already busy season. I mean, in 2023, there were already over 35 million people that visited, and we're still waiting for 2024's results, but I expect that to be more. And there is an upside, though, is that during the time that the city has been preparing, they're sprucing up all the monuments and the buildings. And it's been a bit of a bummer for some people traveling in 2024 that the major fountains and sculptures have been covered, but they're going to be revealed and they will be nice and clean and shiny for 2025.
Okay. All right. Well, what are the key events?
The Jubilee begins on December 24th with the opening of St. Peter's Basilica and continues through the 6th of January, 2026. So it's a year-long event. In addition to that, I want to note that Christmas and Easter are always big events in Rome, Jubilee or not. And this year, Easter is April 20th. There is also the Feast of St. Peter and St. Paul in June. So that could also be a busy month.
So outside of those doors being open to the public that normally you don't have access to, what else is happening during the Jubilee?
Well, I spent some time reviewing the Jubilee website and learned that each month of the year has 2 main types of events. First, there are pilgrimage events for the different dioceses around the world. And specifically in Italy, they call out like Milan, Verona, Reggio Calabria, etc. So I think all of the dioceses in the world get a particular week for them to come with their congregation and to pay homage. On top of that, there are lots of just conferences and seminars for different professions and groups. I saw some for communications professionals, some for artists, the military, people who build churches, the marching bands, governments, seminarians, bishops, deacons. So it seems like a full year of lots of different conferences for people to gather and discuss key topics.
Okay.
Lastly, I do recommend reviewing the Jubilee website. It's been very informative, and I'll list it in the resource notes of the podcast. And this will allow you to plan around or for the key events.
You're right. Some people may want to come for this reason and not just to avoid it.
Right. I think we have to acknowledge that there are some people who are specifically going to want to come to Rome for this event, and maybe some people who are wondering if they should stay away.
So who will be coming?
Most are people coming to participate in the religious events taking place at the Vatican or the other churches.
Okay.
But many will naturally want to explore all of Rome, and some may travel to other cities and regions. So it's really hard to anticipate the impact on the full city and the full country, but there'll be more people.
Okay, that was very educational, and as a Catholic myself, I didn't know about that either. So thank you, Tanya. But the question remains, should people come or will it be too crazy? Will it be a zoo?
Well, none of us have a crystal ball now, right? So I thought it best to ask a major tour operator that I partner with in Rome.
What was the response?
Quote unquote, for the most part, we are not anticipating any significant disturbances from the Jubilee, from what we know so far. Sure, the city is going to be busy, but it always is. And we went through the special Jubilee back in 2016, and it was fine. So no particular weeks to aim for or avoid. Well, maybe except for Easter week, but I think that every year, not just this year. And, Davide, let's again reflect. We were here in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess I didn't realize this was going on, or maybe I forget that I knew, but there were direct flights from Minneapolis then. So that was great.
Right.
And we got here. We spent 3 days in Rome. Yes, it was busy, but I've never seen Rome not be busy. But it didn't strike me as, oh my God, I wish we hadn't come this year.
And it was the end of July, beginning of August when we were there.
Right. So summer season, peak season with the Jubilee.
Okay.
And on top of that, we learned that, most tour companies are going to have, special tours that incorporate 3 of the major basilicas. St. Peter's is usually always included in like the Vatican tour. So that's another thing you can plan into your trip.
So, and lastly, Tanya, what is your personal take on this?
Well, first, I agree. It's likely going to be busy, but because it's spread across the entire year, I don't know that we'll notice the difference in this already busy city. You just need to come with the right expectations. And if you really hate crowds, I would say that you will probably already dislike current levels.
Yeah.
So that's opinion, but I also wanted to turn to a little data to share with you.
I love data.
I have checked with some of my favorite hotels and apartments in Rome for both the week of Easter in April and a week in early June. And currently they all show good availability and prices similar to what I saw in 2024. So no real concerns there. I've also been planning trips for families in March, April, and May already, and have yet to run into problems for hotels or tours. Like, I've actually been a little bit surprised that I'm like, oh, we have to get going on this. And I go to look, and the calendar looks green, and I can have my pick of days and tours.
But this is the calm before the storm, Tanya. I have a feeling so.
It is. Going. And we may start running into some issues. And, I think the more low budget options are going to book out first. So, that's going to be harder. But on the positive side, many more airlines are adding more direct flights to Rome. So that could also make travel a little bit easier.
Yeah, the Minneapolis Rome flight is back, right?
It is.
Yeah. So, but hey, you're not panicking, right?
I'm not yet, but I'm going to end with this advice. Start planning earlier versus later.
Okay.
Hence, we're talking about this. Book refundable flights now. You can always adjust later if prices happen to drop and get a credit for future flights. Avoid the key months of Christmas, Easter, and peak season if you really don't like crowds. But, we said that in prior episodes too.
Mm-hmm.
Limit your stay in Rome, 2.5 to 3 days is really ideal. Mm-hmm. Get in, see the key things, get out. And we've also said it before. Italy is a big country. If you are really concerned or just hate crowds, you can skip Rome. Italy has so much more to offer than just its capital.
Well, thanks. That explains a little bit more of either to go or not. But if you make the decision that 2025 is the year that you want to make that trip to Italy, how are you going to go about it, Tanya? What are different ways to go about to plan your trip?
Well, there are many ways to go about planning, but I'm going to cover 3 today.
Okay.
1, you can do all the planning by yourself.
Oh.
2, avoid doing any planning and look for an organized tour package. Or lastly, get help from a travel professional.
Like you?
Like me.
All right. Okay, so let's start. Let's break this down. Let's talk about planning the trip by yourself. What advice can you give to our listeners?
Well, I'm going to start off by saying that this naturally has been my main method of travel planning since the 90s. Do it yourself. And I think it's because travel agents at the time mainly booked airfare, hotel, cars, and cruises, and they only had a handful of options, usually expensive. Mm-hmm. So to learn about a place and know what to do, you had to rely on books, Fodor's, Lonely Planet, Let's Go, Rick Steves, Frommer's, you name it, I had it. I lived in the travel section at Barnes & Noble. Like, it was my happy place. And I finally just parted with my collection of those books as part of this move. Like, I have been hauling them around for 25 years. Then the internet came about and all of those resources became available online. And you could even book your own flights and hotels and car rental. And on top of that, there are now many travel forums that you can follow and ask questions. TripAdvisor is still out there, Facebook groups, influencers, online blogs. It's literally endless.
So this is not a problem of having too little resources, but the opposite, right? So they're limitless?
They're limitless. And, let's talk about the main ones that people will look to. For flights, you can go to the airline's website, obviously. Then there are booking sites like Capital One and Amex. They're, credit cards that have travel sites. Then there's Expedia, there are Google Flights, Kiwi, and Kayak. These are the most popular. For hotels, you can also go direct, or you can use Capital One and Amex. But then there's also Booking.com, Priceline, Expedia again, and also Kayak. Then there's Airbnb, VRBO, Marriott Villas, et cetera, et cetera. And for tours, there's Expedia again, TripAdvisor, Viator, Get Your Guide, and now Airbnb Experiences. So lots of different portals for you to go to.
Okay.
And, obviously I'm a travel planner. It's pretty clear that I love doing this kind of research, and maybe you do too. I find it interesting and educational, and I like to learn about the destination and options during this travel planning process.
Okay.
But now, having done this myself for decades, there are many disadvantages with this approach in today's world. One, it's extremely time consuming. I can't even begin to estimate how many hours I would invest in each trip that I planned for us. Italy or any destination, at least 80, plus hours spent over weekends for months.
Yeah.
Sitting at my computer, diving through different books. Secondly, it's very overwhelming. There is now too much information out there and too many options. Many times I would sit down and say, I've got 2 hours to find a hotel. 4+ hours later, I'd still be clicking away and down at least 3 different rabbit holes.
Yeah.
And looking at reviews. And for every 2 good review, there'd be a bad one. And then I'd be like, oh, I don't know. Which one do I believe? Do I believe the good ones? Am I more like the person who hated it? And
it's always like, sorry to interrupt, but you booked the one hotel which was priced like the other one that you had as an option, and then you get there and go like, I should have taken the other one. So
sometimes I think we've usually gotten pretty lucky, but picking is stressful, and I would wonder, am I picking the right one? Then you would look at influencers, and then I'm wondering, well, they're influencing for a reason. Can I trust them? What's their angle? How are they getting paid? And now, because they told everybody to go there, now is it going to become a touristy place that everyone is there?
Yeah, and charging more.
Exactly. Thirdly, online can tell you only so much. I spend a lot of time researching places online before I go see them, and nothing compares to the in-person experience. Location, neighborhood, accessibility. You can't see that on a website. And I can't tell you how many highly rated places I have crossed off of my list after seeing them in person.
Yeah.
Just last week, we went out to different agriturismos.
Yeah.
And we're all excited about it. And then as we're driving down a dirt road and another dirt road. And,
for 4 kilometers.
And see that there's a hospital across the street.
Yeah. I said, nope.
Maybe this isn't, as great as it looks like online.
No.
Next, all of those travel portals are great, but they're also in business for a reason. Sure. And they all have a big markup. Like, I'm learning this over this time now, as Booking.com and Expedia is really typically adding 15% on average. Viator, Get Your Guide, is adding 25 to 30% on top of tours, and Marriott Villas 25% compared to, Booking Direct. So know that, they added a nice advantage and convenience, but they're more expensive. Lastly, it's really difficult to distinguish the high quality, authentic experiences you want from standard touristy ones in all of this, because the more touristy ones, I think, are getting called out more frequently. So in summary, I would often get stressed out. My vacation time with my family was so precious. We have so little of it in the US, and travel is expensive. What if I didn't get what I was expecting? And I have some pretty high expectations.
Yes, you do.
And there were many times when I thought, I wish I knew somebody as anal and picky as me who could just hand me their itinerary.
Well, that's why your friends are asking for you, right?
Yes, now it turned it around.
Okay, so let's move on to the next option. Avoid doing any planning at all and go with a tour package. So tell me about that.
Well, this option is on the other end of the spectrum from planning the trip by yourself. And the main advantage of a group tour package is that the entire trip is laid out and taken care of for you. You literally just need to show up and follow along with the group. And, there is some comfort in numbers and having a tour leader that's guiding you through the country. Now, there are lots of great organizations out there. Again, there's so many that becomes the challenge. But the key ones are Rick Steves, Overseas Adventure Travel, Globus, Intrepid Travel, Backroads. And these are just some of the top few that I came across. And many organizations help put group tours together. Many alumni organizations and, wineries in the U.S., we would see put group packages together. And we just had a relative book through Rhodes Scholars that had more of an educational focus.
Okay.
And, I'm going to admit, I'm not as familiar with these companies. And, I did a quick research on the internet to find these and dozens of options appeared. So you still have to do some research to find the right one for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And, an organized tour can sound appealing in many ways, but I think there are a number of disadvantages also to consider.
Okay. Which are?
First, it's probably impossible to find the exact itinerary that you want. You may get close, but you may wish you could swap out a city for another one or spend more or less time in any one destination. Mm-hmm. It's not up to you. You have to kind of go along with the crowd. Two, to be cost effective, it's typically a larger group of 20 or more people that are going on these tours. And you don't know who's going to be in the group, if you have things in common or not. And groups travel at a slower pace. It's just logistics. 20 people to get on a bus, 20 people to get off a bus, 20 people to get checked into a hotel, 20 people to go on a tour, 20 people to have to feed and use the restroom. I noticed the difference from when I travel alone, when there's the two of us, when it's our family, a small group. Like it just multiplies and you have more people, their needs to address.
Okay.
And because it's a large group, there are only certain buses, hotels, and restaurants and tours that can accommodate that many people. It's not going to be as intimate and less likely to be authentic. Many Italian places they're small, they're boutique, they're small restaurants. So you're going to get more touristy type places. And, I actually had one hotel we visited last year in Sorrento.
Yeah.
They explained that a tour company had just been visiting.
Yep.
And they didn't like them. Because
that hotel was gorgeous.
It was, but they couldn't offer 20 identical rooms.
Yeah.
And that was important so that guests couldn't compare and get upset. So they were crossed off the list for this tour group. And, another thing is that it's going to be more expensive than maybe what you could do independently. Or if it is a good value option, it may lack some quality, versus what you're spending. So that, the tour company has to make a decent margin. So lastly, I'm going to point out that along the lines of payment, because these are big commitments being made by the tour company, you typically need to pay for the tour upfront and often 6 to 12 months in advance of your trip. So overall, I'm sure there are amazing packages out there and great companies, but you need to find the right one for you, and you'll still likely need to make some compromises.
Okay, I don't think we ever experienced a tour travel, except for maybe our cruise, right?
Well, we haven't, but I do want to remind you that my parents did.
Yes.
Their actual first experience in Italy before they traveled with us was to go on a group that brought them to, I think it was Rome, Florence, and Venice. So the key places. And their feedback was, and I think my dad pointed out is...
He got bored.
Well, he didn't like being herded with a bunch of people and having to be on a set schedule and show up at this time and we're departing at X time and be ready and such. So overall, I still think they had a good time, but it was a little bit tiring at the end to be traveling in a pack.
Okay, Tanya, that leaves us the final option. So tell me about getting a trip planner like yourself to professionally design and plan a trip.
Well, listeners, you may have guessed that this is where the conversation was headed. Why should somebody hire a travel professional like myself for help? I'm going to begin with repeating something I explained earlier, is that I've mostly planned my own trips and was actually leery of travel agents based on, our limited experience with them. Initially, my understanding was that they were primarily focused on booking flights, hotels, and cruises, and didn't have much knowledge of the actual destination. So, Davide, we asked for help with the travel agent when we went on a cruise and also went to a Greek resort for our honeymoon.
Yes, I remember that.
We were shown a few options and boom, done. It was very transactional and they didn't really have a ton to offer. I just walked away going, okay.
They showed us a couple pictures of the resorts They showed us like 2 or 3 resorts. This is how a bedroom looks like, and this is how the resort, an overview of the resort itself, a picture of that. And yeah, within an hour, let's go there. But didn't know
it
anything.
just felt like they didn't have any personal knowledge or advice to add. And, because they operate on commission, I believed, again, rightly or wrongly, that they are mainly incentivized to promote a short list of luxury properties and experiences that are going to be most profitable for them. And I believe we also had to pay everything or at least half of it upfront.
So you didn't like travel agents and still you created a travel planning company. Why?
Very good question. I really struggled with this at first because, as I've said, I haven't had a ton of experience with travel agents and I hadn't been impressed. But yet I had acquired a ton of travel planning skills over the years. And more importantly, I'd acquired all of this knowledge about Italy. I was convinced that I could use these skills and knowledge to add value for others. And I set out to be different than what my current understanding of a travel agent was. And that was, my motivation for starting Amici Vacations, is to differentiate myself from the current definition of a travel agent.
Okay. So tell me more about your vision, Tanya.
My first task was to sit down and create a list of what I would want from a travel advisor. And this became my vision for Amici Vacations and the value I wanted to provide others. First, planning expertise and attention to detail, not just for the hotels and tours, but ensuring the entire day from morning to night would be stress-free and seamless, providing options that would enable flexibility and maximize people's time, during their day. Secondly, personal knowledge about Italy. We've done so much traveling, and I wanted to be that person who is sharing that expertise and, of everything that we recommend, providing helpful insights and tips about each location and what to expect. Personally vetting our recommendations.
Yeah.
Third, a focus on immersive, authentic, and fun-filled experiences, really wanting to avoid those overly touristy places and incorporating the hidden gems we have discovered during all of our travels. Next, connections. This is so important that we want to develop relationships with the best hospitality partners and share them with our clients, and making sure that it's a great quality and they're being treated and hosted as friends.
Yeah.
Next, I want to be a person that insists on excellence, someone that has high expectations of quality at a good value, and being able to advise people on when it's worth it to pay more and when it's, more important to be budget focused, depending on, what you're getting for it. And I want to be somebody that people can trust when I say it's good. When I say it's good, it's good.
Yeah. All right.
And lastly, providing a full range of options for hotels and tours with no pressure to select expensive options that provide a commission.
So basically, you wanted to create the same kind of trips you created for our family for all of these years.
Yes, exactly. And that's really how I approach each and every trip that I plan, with my standards in mind and what I would do if it were my trip with my family.
Well, Tanya, that was your vision. And now Amici Vacation has been in business for 2 years. Can you describe the travel services that you offer?
Yes. My services have evolved a bit over these 2 years, and I now offer 2 main services, and we're contemplating a third. The 2 main ones are either full service travel planning or trip review and consulting.
Okay.
And we're considering a third with personally hosting small groups here in Tuscany.
Yeah, let's see, right? So
with full service travel planning, all aspects of trip planning is handled for you. And I directly manage all bookings and supplier communications, excluding airfare and car rental. I also keep track of all expenses versus an agreed upon budget upfront. With trip review and consulting, the focus is providing, knowledge about traveling in Italy and providing specific recommendations as requested, whether it's trip design, tours, restaurants, etc. And think of it as an a la carte assistance for people that mostly want to plan the trip themselves, but want some added confidence and have some key questions and perhaps want some specific areas of help.
Okay, so they can even ask you, hey, can you still book my hotels and stuff like that? And they can, just ask you within that a lot of time of
Exactly.
Time that they book you.
It can be exactly what they need. But let's review what's included in the full service travel planning, as to be honest, this is the option most of my clients select. And they like it because it includes the standard deliverables of a trip planning app. So it's on your phone, this digital itinerary. Mm-hmm. You also get a printed version. You get general traveling and Italy guidance and checklists, key attractions and tips from Tanya on every major destination that they visit, and recommendations and bookings for each hotel, tour, restaurants, trains, car service, and I'm the primary contact for supplier communications, and I'm here for on-call support during their trip. And the pricing for this service is a daily rate per trip day that is determined based on the number of accommodations needed, group size, and overall trip complexity. Now, for the consulting service, it is an hourly rate, and once a certain amount is reached, all of the standard deliverables and the trip app are included.
Okay. So just to be clear, Tanya, you're not getting any commissions from hotels or tour operators like travel agents do, right? Can you explain to me why you made that decision?
Sure. First, you're right. I don't earn any commissions. And I made this decision up front mainly because I didn't want to be influenced in my hotel selections and also didn't want to exclude apartments on Booking.com, Airbnb, VRBO, etc. Since many families need these types of accommodations and they don't pay commissions.
Yeah, they don't pay. Okay, yeah.
So I didn't want to limit myself to just hotels. But I did have hotels offer it to me. And, I tried it out 1 or 2 times just to see how it would work. And it proved to be a hassle that, larger agencies have automatic systems that track and bill for commissions. I didn't. So I had to individually invoice and worry about currency exchange and other fees. I just didn't want to be in the business of tracking down commissions. I wanted to focus on providing the best advice and knowledge and knowing the ins and outs about Italy.
Okay.
But it did seem irresponsible to leave money on the table, so to speak. So I thought of another solution. I work to obtain discounts from all properties and tool providers up front, and I pass these savings to my clients who then pay for everything directly to the provider. I'm not always successful in getting discounts. And again, some places like Airbnb don't offer them. But in general, I usually obtain 10 to 15% for hotels versus their direct pricing. And when you compare that to these portals like Booking.com, it's even way much more. And, I usually get 10 to 20% off of tours versus their direct pricing. And again, versus Viator, it's a lot more, around 30%. And these savings can add up and largely offset my fee in most circumstances. And, it does depend on what people book. The higher the value, the higher the discount.
So let me see if I understand this right. If I go to Expedia.com to book a hotel, they're showing me one rate, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I go to the website of that hotel, they're showing me another rate, which should be those 15% lower, right?
Correct.
So now, you can go and book it yourself directly. But if you book it as Amici Vacations, you get an additional 10 to 15%. Right?
Exactly.
So, and that 10-15% you pass on to your clients.
I do. So the way I think about it is instead of me working with hotels to charge you their standard rate and then send me a check for a commission, you get the discounted rate and you can think of it as offsetting the fee that you're paying me. And you're getting a perfectly planned trip with all of our knowledge and connections throughout Italy.
Well, it's been 2 years since you created Amici Vacations. You've been in business for 2 years. How's it going? And curious also, what kind of clients are looking for your services?
Well, first, I have to say these first 2 years have been super busy and I have learned so much. It has been a huge transition from the corporate world to the travel planning world. But the thing I love the most is getting to know so many new people. And it is such a pleasure to share my love of Italy with them and plan these special trips for them. So I've actually had lots of different types of clients over these past 2 years. First, and mainly, lots of families celebrating big birthdays, graduations, visiting a student that is studying abroad, and, a few families with younger kids. And so that's been kind of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Be reminded of our years when our kids were little. Then there have been lots of couples, a few celebrating anniversaries, one that got married in Italy, and another honeymoon couple. And again, that was super fun to plan a romantic honeymoon and a different kind of spin.
Yeah.
And lastly, lots of groups with couples, some of them related to cruise trips. And so this has been fun because it's actually similar to what we've been doing a lot lately, is bringing other friends as couples over to Italy and taking them around. So have had lots of fun.
Yeah. Okay. So why did they reach out to you? What kind of help did they need?
Well, I first have to say that many of my clients reported that they typically planned their own trips. And now they were just either too busy, busy professionals, busy families running all over town, and they flat out just didn't have time to plan the trip the way they would want to have it done. Mm-hmm. Or secondly, they were just tired of doing all the work themselves. They would tell me, I could do it, but I just don't want to anymore. It takes too much time and stress, and I'm done with it. Then there are some that come to me and say that they are a bit intimidated to plan a trip to a foreign country. They've never been to Italy and don't know where to start, or are afraid to make the wrong choices. And they want the comfort of our expertise and our ability to help while they are here, mm-hmm. if they need it. And lastly, with the large groups and families, often the challenge is that no one wants to take the lead and be the travel planner. And, they often get put into being, having the responsibility for making decisions, trying to herd all of the cats, so to speak. And it creates a lot of stress within the group and can be hard on the relationships. Somebody is having too much of a voice. Others are not having enough of one. And so, they come to me and I end up being a bit of a project manager and mediator, making sure all voices are heard and offering compromises. And nobody is having to take on that task of leading the group and bossing them around and, being responsible for the group even on the trip. So involving a third party is often the answer, mm-hmm. and it's worked really well.
Cool. Well, Tanya, I know you have debrief meetings with your clients after the trip. What's their feedback?
Yes, I'm getting great feedback and some wonderful testimonials. And it's been truly heartwarming to learn how much fun they had on their trips. Many saying that they were truly once-in-a-lifetime experiences and dreams come true. And that just is like hitting, checking all the boxes of what I wished for mm-hmm. when I set out to create Amici Vacations. And it was to exactly deliver that. So that gives me the most joy.
Kudos.
And, it's hard to summarize everything, but, here are some of the key themes that, have come through in all of their feedback.
Okay.
One, they love the personalization and the custom nature of their itineraries. That I'm, been really good at listening and making sure their interests were met and weren't trying to give them, the package, you must do this because that's what everybody does. Mm-hmm. I listen to them and customize it. They appreciate the local knowledge as well as the connections that I have, that we have. And, it's clear that we know a lot of people and then those people know people. Mm-hmm. And it really translated as making them feel welcomed and hosted by friends. And it was a very high touch experience. Many often note the top quality accommodations and exceptional tours, clear that I had vetted them personally and I have really high standards,
yep.
which I do.
Yes.
And, they did note the real and authentic experiences, feeling like they were, again, hosted by many local Italians that are touring them around, good at optimizing their time in the country, that I'm getting them around efficiently and being able to see things in transit. Mm-hmm. Largely, the feedback is that it's all stress-free and seamless, that as busy as some of them are, they feel relaxed. That they just look at their itinerary and say, what's next? Mm-hmm. And they move on. They appreciate all the insights and guidance that I give them on each destination, from the must-see tourist stops to the lesser-known gems. And I do include a lot of that detail describing what they're going to see, the culture, the practices, what foods to try, and they love that. They, like my attention to detail and clear instruction and documentation. And there's a lot of documentation to tell somebody what they're doing during their trip. So being able to organize that and deliver it in a way is, great to hear. And also they appreciated that I would check in on them during their trip to make sure things were going smoothly and was there to provide support if needed, if they're running late or need to change a tour or missed a flight, accommodating those things. And lastly, and most importantly, I don't know, most importantly, but most frequently is that everyone loves the Trip app. Having all of their information on their phone that has all the details of every single day. And they swear they can't travel without it anymore. And actually, I've used it for our own travels.
Yes.
So what do you think of it?
I love that app. It's really slick because let's say tonight we have dinner at that restaurant. Guess what? I need directions. There's just like a selection that I put, get me directions and boop, and it goes into Google Maps and it drives me to the restaurant right away. Or I need to call the restaurant. Oh, there's the phone number. I click on it and it calls the restaurant. So it's great. It's awesome. And there's so many more things like, it shows you flights, it shows you if it's late, everything. So
all the details.
Yeah. So
no, I love it myself too. So it's been a lifesaver for me as the planner and for the users.
Well, I was scanning those testimonials on your website, and Tanya, one that really struck me was, quote, Tanya elevated our trip to Italy from one that would have been fun to a trip of a lifetime that was perfection at every turn.
Aw, that's one of my favorites too, as it really captures the value I strive so hard to add. And, it's really kind of noting that you can plan your own trip to Italy. And Italy is so amazing that you're going to have a good time and you'll likely never know what you may have missed. Like you don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. But using someone with the knowledge and experience that I have been able to gather over the past 26 years, it really takes it to a whole new level. And my goal is not to just plan a great trip, but ensure you have an authentic and immersive experience that really hits it out of the ballpark. Yeah. Like it's taking it up a notch that you are coming back and saying, wow, that was the best trip I've ever been on. Yeah.
So Tanya, I have to say that when I was traveling on my own with my friends, we would just, get in the car, drive somewhere, and having one disappointment after the other, looking for hotels, and on the spot, which was a disaster. And when you started planning trips for us, it was always something that I did not have to worry about anything. And to the restaurants we would go, I knew those were fantastic restaurants and fantastic experiences. And so I'm so glad that you started Amici Vacations. And I'm so glad that you can share your experiences with other people too. So congratulations. But now, to conclude this episode, do you have more tips for people? Tips from Tanya.
Of course I do. And first, thank you, Davide. It's been awesome to plan trips for our family and for you over these years. Sometimes you were my hardest customer.
No, come on.
But yes. Okay, well, let's move on to the tips. The key tip for 2025 is start planning now. And don't stress out about the Jubilee. It's going to be manageable. And I honestly believe that with every additional person that is going to Rome next year because of the Jubilee, it will be offset by somebody who says, nope, I don't want to go. So it's all going to even out, right? It's going to cancel out. One goes, one stays. So it'll stay normal. And with advanced planning, you can get what you want and you can avoid Rome if you prefer. Like there are so many options in Italy. So
spend more days in Tuscany.
If you work with me, we'll work around the challenges of the Jubilee to make sure you don't really notice it. Secondly, of course, the main tip from the episode has to be contact Amici Vacations to help you plan a stress-free and amazing once-in-a-lifetime experience in Italy. Trust me and my client testimonials, you will have the trip you're dreaming of. So make sure to go check them out on our website. And lastly, this is more of a request versus a tip. But if you are interested in spending a week in Tuscany hosted by Davide and myself, please reach out and let us know at info@amicivacations.com. We'd love to evolve our business to a hands-on personal experience with you that we participate in. We have a small group is what we're envisioning, but we're not quite sure how quickly we want to dive into this. So I want to hear from you guys.
Yeah, maybe just to kind of give you a little bit of a thing. If you are like 2 or 3 couples that travel well together and you want to be guided by us, contact us so we can host you. And
we'll plan the entire week of all of our favorite things in Tuscany. And slowly, maybe we'll expand to all the regions of Italy.
All right. Okay, so we are at the end of this episode. We want to thank our listeners. And as usual, we want to give you or remind you of our Facebook page, Experience Italy with Friends, to keep up with our travels and with what's going on. And I hope we did inspire you to plan your 2025 trip now. And what else, Tanya?
Well, I want to say enjoy the time with family and friends over the holidays and use the time to discuss Italy and everybody's wants and desires and get them excited to start planning a trip.
It's going to be Thanksgiving next week in the U.S. So happy Thanksgiving to all of our friends in the U.S. So we wanted to let you know that we are going to have one more episode this year before we're going to take an extended break to refresh and to bring you new episodes then in 2025. So
yes, so I have one more episode for you in 2 weeks, and then we will wish you all a happy holidays and happy new year.
All right. Until next time.
Ciao.
Ciao.
We hope you've enjoyed Experience Italy with Friends. If you like the podcast, remember to follow us and leave a review letting us know what you found to be the most helpful. And if you want expert advice or assistance in creating your own immersive and authentic experience in Italy, visit us at www.amicivacations.com.